Middle Tennessee has been one of the best mid-major programs in the country over the last few years, but now the Blue Raiders will be facing a major rebuild. With former head coach Kermit Davis taking the Ole Miss job and new head coach Nick McDevitt coming over from UNC Asheville, the program experienced some major roster turnover this week as 4 returnees left the program. Earlier in the week, junior guard David Simmons opted to transfer out of Middle Tennessee after he averaged 17.9 minutes per game for the Conference USA regular season champions last. On Friday, the losses continued, as 3 more players left the team. Rising junior point guard Tyrek Dixon announced his intention to transfer, while the program dismissed guard Antwain Johnson and forward Devian Thomas. Dixon was a valuable floor leader for Middle Tennessee the past 2 years, while Johnson, a rising senior guard, would have been the team's returning leading scorer after putting up 10.3 points per game last week. Since so much of the successful core of the past 3 years is now gone from Middle Tennessee, it will be on McDevitt to bring in new talent to sustain the recent great stretch of play. The Blue Raiders made 2 round of 32 appearances in a row before missing the NCAA tournament last after winning CUSA's regular crown. Now, with Western Kentucky making a power play by bringing in 5-star big man Charles Bassey, and the power has shifted very quickly in one of the most competitive mid-major conferences in the country. The NBA is reportedly exploring the possibility of ending the infamous one-and-done rule that forces many potential professional basketball players to head to college for at least one. According to a report from ESPN's Zach Lowe, citing a league memo sent to NBA teams late this week, the league office is indicating that eligibility rules for the NBA draft could change as soon as 2021 or 2022, but not earlier. The league is currently trying to figure out how the FBI's investigation into college basketball will play out, while also trying to navigate the player development changes that would be needed for high school players to once again, potentially enter the NBA. Recently, the NBA has started to allow its teams and front office personnel to attend elite summer high school events, as the Pangos All-American Camp and the NBPA Top 100 Camp both had an NBA presence to watch elite class of 2019, 2020 and 2021 prospects. Lowe's report mentions that the one-and-done rule is not mentioned directly by name, but the NBA is trying to warn its teams before the 2018 NBA draft. These future changes could be on the horizon, and teams need to understand what they are doing with future draft picks in potential trades. The scenario of a 2021 NBA draft in which high school players might be eligible is a fascinating subplot for college basketball, and the sport at large, over these next few years. As Lowe pointed out in his report, whenever the rule is eventually opened up, it will create one large mega draft in which 2 elite classes of high school players would be draft eligible in the same year. With potentially double the lottery level and first-round talent of a typical NBA draft, it would force a lot of elite college recruits to examine the possibility of reclassifying up in order to get ahead of that mega draft and be in a pool with fewer elite prospects. It also gives the high school players themselves a unique decision with regard to their potential college futures. If an elite high school prospect is 1 year away from entering the NBA draft out of school, would some go to college, or would they try to go for a post-grad year and follow in the footsteps of players like Thon Maker and Anthony Simons? The expanding presence of the NBA's G League is also a factor in all of this, as salaries for the league are increasing and becoming more respectable, giving high school players a viable professional option in the United States instead of college for 1 year before moving on to the draft. There are still way too many moving parts to truly speculate how this will all go down. But at least we know that the NBA appears to be viewing 2021 or 2022 as the potential change to the one-and-done rule. We'll have to see how elite high school prospects start potentially adjusting to reclassify, while colleges also might have to adopt some new and unique recruiting strategies if they rely on one-and-done players to fill out their roster. Kentucky received additional reinforcements for the 2018-19 on Friday, as 5-star guard Ashton Hagans graduated high school a year early with the intent to head to Lexington for next. The 6'4" Hagans is considered by many recruiting analysts to be a top 10 national prospect in the class of 2019, as he gives the Wildcats 3 5-star recruits at lead guard for next. The Georgia State Player of the Year as a junior this past, Hagans joins a crowded Kentucky backcourt that includes sophomore Quade Green and fellow incoming freshman and McDonald's All-American Emmanuel Quickley. While the juggling of minutes is going to be a major storyline for head coach John Calipari, the addition of Hagans gives Kentucky even more lineup flexibility than they had before. Because Higgins has good size and defensive ability, he could be used to play alongside the smaller Green, giving the Wildcats a two-guard look that would have more defensive intensity. Playing quickly and Higgins together would give Kentucky a bigger two-guard lineup that would have a chance to be pretty strong defensively. And, of course, Calipari could opt to go with some three-guard lineups with other off-guards like Eldon Johnson or Tyler Herro to give Kentucky a tough perimeter attack. Handling minutes and egos will be something to watch for in Lexington, but Calipari has handled this sort of situation with a Final Four appearance before. It's hard to say if the Wildcats will try to play another platoon type of system like we saw in 2014-15, but if they end up getting graduate transfer forward Red Travis, they might have the personnel to give it a shot. Villanova made a late addition to their 2018 recruiting class on Friday afternoon as they landed a commitment from four-star prospect Saddiq Bey. Bey was originally committed to NC State, but he asked out of his letter of intent in mid-May as the Wolfpack ended up over the scholarship limit. The versatile, 6'7" forward is a good fit for the way that Villanova likes to play, as he can guard different positions, plays with the toughness you expect out of a kid from Washington, D.C. and is a capable scorer. Bey is also a product of Sidwell Friends, the same high school that produced former Villanova star Josh Hart. He will join a recruiting class that also includes five-star point guard Javan Quinerly, four-star prospects Cole Swider and Brandon Slater, and Albany grad transfer Joe Cremo. The news was first reported by 247 Sports. In a somewhat surprising turn of events, Marvin Bagley III will reportedly sign an endorsement deal with Puma in the NBA. It's a 5-year deal, according to reports, that will pay Bagley and his family quite a bit of money and will allow them to fund an AAU program for Bagley's younger brother. That program will be coached by Marvin Bagley Jr., and that gets to the heart of what makes this decision so surprising. Bagley III has always been considered a Nike kid. He played for Nike AAU programs throughout his high school career. The last 2 years, his father ran the program that he played for, originally called Phoenix Family but eventually changed to Nike Family. That meant that Nike was able to legally pay Bagley Jr. a significant amount of money to fund the program. Eventually, Bagley would up enrolling at Duke, one of Nike's flagship college basketball programs. This is not the way that it is supposed to go for a shoe company like Nike. The reason they spend as much money as they do in the youth ranks is to keep as many kids as possible loyal to the brand. It's fairly easy to figure out who will end up having a chance at being an NBA player as early as 15 years old, but what's harder to do is to predict who will actually be able to move product. Did anyone think James Harden or Damian Lillard would be worth a signature shoe? So these shoe companies will spend a relatively small amount of money to fly those kids around the country during their high school years, keep them decked out in the gear and hope that lottery ticket eventually pays off. What is a couple $100,000 investment when the payoff is hundreds of millions of dollars in shoe sales? All you need to do is land one Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant to make the math work. But that isn't all that the shoe companies are looking for here. With the amount of money that they have invested in sponsorship deals with these schools, they need to protect that investment. We saw it with Adidas and Louisville. They funneled $100,000 to Brian Bowen, a Nike kid, to get to him to an Adidas school, not because they thought he would end up being an uber-profitable spokesman, but because they needed to protect their investment at the college level. So while it's easy to look at this and say that Bagley's time spent at Duke helped him get a big, fat shoe contract, I think it's the other way around. He helped Nike, without getting his market value, during his run at Duke, and what it got to him was a shoe contract worth roughly $1 million a year, according to Oregon Live. Either way, the fact of the matter is that Bagley's value to these brands is no different now than it was when he was playing for the Blue Devils. Why is it only now that help's allowed to cash in on it? Jeff Goodman joined Rob Dorster on Friday to talk about the health of Michael Porter Jr. and whether or not the recent news coming out about him will hurt where he gets picked. They also work through Marvin Bagley III, Trae Young and the rest of the lottery. Open. Porter is injured again. How bad is it? 27-30, DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley III at number 135-15, Wendell Carter Jr., Trae Young in the middle of the lottery, 44-15, is Mo Bamba going to be a bust? Who are the sleepers in this draft? Other rapid-fire questions.